Okay, well, let's talk about some things they can do on the front end. First, everybody says, clean up your books, but how do you do that? If you don't really know if your accounting's not good, I would say the first step would be to get a sell side quality of earnings. And yes, it is thousands of dollars and it's worth it. And that will help you understand how your business works. It'll help you understand how a buyer is going to look at your business. It'll help you understand your seasonality better and how you normalize numbers. Like I have a seller and he pays his rent all in the month of October, like the whole thing, because he owns the building. And so he just always pays in October. And I said, okay, could you have your accountant redo that? And this year you pay it, monthly so that it's normalized. And he said, sure. So we fixed that ahead of time, right? He used to also pay his salary, his whole salary in December. And again, the QofE would normalize something like that so that a buyer can see so it doesn't have these wild fluctuations. And that's what you're trying to see. You're trying to get the numbers on an accrual basis. You're trying to match up projects to when the income arrives and when you get the job and when you get paid and where the inventory is and labor that goes with it. You're trying to match up all those things. So a sell side QofE would be huge. And then, cleaning up the books. If you're paying your kids and your mother-in-law and they don't work there, then try and make it so that's in one column. So it's easy for people to add back instead of, scattered about, or sometimes in wages, sometimes in contractor. Like be very specific so the add backs would be easier. Some of those financial things. And then, like we did this one deal where it was, and I own this company with my brother. And so this was my brother's deal, but the seller built out a boathouse for $250,000 and hid it all in the cost of goods of a construction company. So we couldn't really add that back. And $250,000 is some real money, especially on a 4X. You're missing $1 million. And was it worth the tax savings for $250,000? I can guarantee you it was not. So it's stuff like that that you really need to work on ahead of time. But at a minimum, the year you want to put it on the market, at least be super clean that year. So that would be my first thing as far as
Okay,
keeping the
so
numbers.
yeah, so QofE, I'm trying to figure out a way to make an analogy because I want to say it's like an appraisal, but it's not really an appraisal because an appraisal might generate some other emotions. So what's a good way to say, like, if you don't know what a QofE is, here's what it actually is?
Like a proctology exam, like would that be better than the appraisal? Okay, all right. So maybe not. Let me think.
Okay, okay.
Not always
I'm trying to
appropriate.
encourage people to get one done.
So I would say it's more like a financial inspection. So that also doesn't sound good. I think appraisal even sounds better, but appraisal is not accurate. It would be more like a financial. I didn't really come to the meeting with this in mind. Um, you're trying to normalize the earnings and see what it would look like if the business were run in a true accrual basis. So you're trying to get it as systemized as possible. And really, it's just an organization. So maybe we could look at it as it's a financial organization for how the business would be run if everything were normalized. And maybe that sounds like better than a proctology exam,
No.
but
Well,
it's going to feel like that. It's going to be unpleasant. And all you can do is just smile and say, look, a lot of people do it and it's not that bad.
that's such a great way to put it, but I got to figure out a way that people will go, I need this because you call it that,
They do.
but the buyer's going to make you get one. And that's the thing.
Yes.
Like the buyer's going to make you get one. And
Yeah.
so that's, and then if you don't have one, you got to argue against theirs. And it's like, oh, you're fighting uphill. And so at least having one
Okay.
will give you some playing ground.
All right. Well, what if, right? You sell this vision, right? When I sell a company, my goal, and I don't always achieve it, but my goal is like the buyer and the seller are like holding hands, skipping to the campfire, singing Kumbaya. I know it seems unrealistic, but that is my vision. And a lot of times I make it happen. Not literally, but like a lot of times, like the buyer and seller have a great relationship. And I feel like I knit that together because it's so important. And so I think, when you do this, like you hand this report to the buyer and say, here's my financial health. And it's like in really good shape. And then you can get your buy side QV, and I have everything ready. So you're welcome to talk to my QV provider, and it'll be so much faster for you. Like you're really setting them up for success when you do that. And you're setting yourself up for success because you're getting everything organized and prepared. And there's a lot to be said for that. Whenever it's why you should arrive early to a meeting so that you arrive, you're relaxed, right? Nobody wants to run in and be like, sorry, 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 I'm so sorry I'm late. There was a blah, 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 blah. No, arrive on time. There should be zero excuse unless there was like a death. Okay, like zero excuse.
Yeah.